Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and today we are doing the review on the Kizer October. Now, before we get into this, shout out to Kizer. They are killing it this year. They got a lot of amazing designs coming, and a lot of amazing designs out. I know I picked up a bunch of them because they're just impressing me. They've been impressing me all year. So yeah, shout out to them. And also, this knife right here comes in a couple other options. This is not the only option. It comes in a blacked out option, and then there's a titanium version coming soon, which is very interesting. This one's about $129, $130 basically. And the titanium version, I think, is like $179, or is going to be $179. Now, the one thing I was very interested in with this one was the 20 CV that Kizer was going to use. Kizer's killing it with a bunch of new steels they're using. They got a bunch of new knives with different steels. Today I was testing this one in M390. Yesterday I was testing this one in 3V. So the big question is not whether or not, because I have no doubt that they're not using the steel that they advertise. They've been tested many times and they've never lied to us. So I have no doubt the steel isn't legit. The question is, how's the heat treat? So we'll get into that here in just a moment. But that was one of my biggest questions on this. Now that my Carta is done extremely well, mine might be a little dirty. You know, I've been using the heck out of it, but it's pretty easy to clean my Carta. But it is good quality micarta. Somebody said that this one looks like bacon micarta. I think that's hilarious because I agree. But the texture, like these white parts, you can actually feel those lines. They are more rough. Now, the darker red areas are a little smoother, but it actually feels like micarta, like cloth. And we've seen it over and over and over again where companies are using micarta, but then what does it feel like? It feels like G10. This actually feels like micarta. I really like the texture of it. It's done very, very well. Let's get into the action. The action is really good on this thing. The detent is well tuned for the reverse flick, thumb flick, or the little flipper tab that is so small. It is hidden basically, but because of the point of contact between your finger and the flipper tab, you have a ton of leverage. You see how much higher it is than the center point of the pivot, which gives you a massive amount of leverage and makes it come out very fast. The jimping on the flipper tab is done very well. It is grippy. It's exactly the way I would want to see it on a flipper tab, particularly like this. So I do like that they put the jimping there the way they did. It grips you very well, and you feel like you have a lot of control. Doesn't feel like you're going to slip or anything like that. Now, it is going to be primarily more of a light switch than a push button, obviously, but you can kind of do one of those in-betweens where you pull down and push at the same time, and it works just fine. And like I said, it flies out really good. The detent is well tuned, but it's lighter. It's on the lighter side, which it should be because of the, you know, the way this is going with the reverse flick and everything. Now, it's still plenty strong. I wouldn't say this is too light or anything like that. I'm glad it's not too strong. Now you see we have the fuller that runs all the way down the blade, which means you can reverse flick it down here, or you can just use the hole, you know, where the opening is. You can use the meat of your finger or the nail. It doesn't matter. And unlike a lot of knives that are easy to reverse flick, this one is very easy to thumb flick. I have no issues, even though I just skipped off right there. I have no issues thumb flicking it. Now the lock bar, easy access to the lock bar in this thing. You can stop it because of the flipper tab being right there, because actually right where the flipper tab, where you hit the flipper tab, that's the lock up. So that's the lock face. So when it's right here, when you unlock it, you can stop it right there, but it's right on the detent. But they did put a detent ramp in there, as you can see right there on the side of the lock face. So, but you can also get past it. There is a position of which you are past it. And since they have that ramp there, it actually kind of helps. Now, you can also just let it go all the way past if you want to, which it will drop all the way down. You want to be careful because you do have the forward finger choil right here, and you want to make sure the edge of the blade hits your thumb and not, or the nail and not your skin. But very, very smooth, and out of the box, it was very smooth, but I'll tell you what, after playing with it a little bit and oiling it with the KPL, it has gotten extremely smooth. The Ergos, it's a very thin knife. I don't know about very thin, but it's thin, but it's tall. So you do notice that right away. Right away, you notice it is thin in your hand and tall at the same time, which isn't going to add to the most comfortable ergos, but it's comfortable. It works. I do feel the clip quite a bit because it's a deep carry clip, but this is the grip I'm always in right here, if not this one. I don't really hold it back here, but you could, and even though it is shorter, you can still get a 4-finger grip, but that clip is really digging in. But once I get up here, I'm a little bit away from the clip, even though it is still hitting me, but it is rather comfortable, even though I notice very much so that it is thin in the hand. I like that I can get them nice and close to the blade. The jimping on the spine is very, very well done. I love this kind of jimping, so I'm very happy with that. Now, let's talk about the cutting performance. It cuts very well. Now, we're talking about 20 thousandths behind the edge, so it's not very thin, but it's a tall, flat ground blade, which in return gives us pretty good geometry. It cuts rather well. It does. And I'm happy with the way it does cut. It slices through materials pretty good. Now, you are going to get some drag from the fuller. I mean, it's just, if it looks really badass, it looks really cool, but fullers create drag. It's just the way it is. Now, I didn't really have too much of an issue with materials really binding up on it. You know, for the most part, things, you know, pretty much passed it up. But there were a couple times where it did bind up with me at work. Not that big of a deal. And it cuts pretty dang good. Utility cuts, very, very good. One, the position of the blade with the handle and like down here where my fingers land, it's nice and comfortable for a utility cut. You feel like you have like almost like a claw. You feel really good with it. It locks in really good. You have a lot of force and a lot of leverage back through the cuts. And the tip, even though it's not like a dainty tip, it is a nice, strong, durable tip. It works very well for precision cuts or utility cuts. And you can kind of lock your finger under there. But yeah, it for utility cuts, it works very, very well. Now, the geometry isn't going to be like I said, a precision cutter or anything like that for utility cuts, but because of the type of blade shape it is, it works extremely well. So no complaints on utility cuts or slicing, other than you're going to get maybe a little bit of drag through some slicing. Now, let's talk about the clip. So, deep carry clip. It is not inset. It is, sitting on top of the scale. And there were times it did hit right there, where the material did bind up right here, trying to slide it through. There were times it did hit there. Now, it's okay. It's still pretty good. There is quite a bit of tension on the clip. It is a pretty strong clip. You wouldn't expect it to be as strong as it is, but it does slide in and out pretty good, but this little area is a little tighter than you might think, and your pants do, especially if you have thick pants. It is going to get caught up on the rim right there of the pocket clip where it screws in. T8s all the way around except for the clip. The clip is T6s, but we have T8 pivot, T8s back here. I love seeing that. I'm so happy to see that. So very, very nice. 2 standoffs. So it does have a decently strong construction while still staying lightweight. I can flex it a little bit, and it does have steel liners that are milled out, but it's going for a lightweight, easy to carry EDC with a good blade steel, right? Good materials, good blade steel. It's not really going for heavy duty strength or anything like that. That being said, it is very solid left to right. And I, tested for, any lock rock or anything like that. And it's been just fine. The stone washing is very beautiful on this thing. I love the stone washing. Now let's get into this steel. So first off, before I really talk about the sharpening and everything, I just want to say that I did test it, the steel with cutting and everything, but I didn't get to really test the steel to say if it's going to get a great performance in edge retention. But I did notice that it did great. I didn't have any issues with it at all, none whatsoever. It was fine. And then I decided to sharpen it to see how it felt. And it felt very good on the stone. I mean, it felt way better than I expected, especially at this price point. So cutting with it, so sharpening it, man, it felt really good on the stone. It went fast. And a lot of times people think that if the steel is easy to sharpen, that it's not good or something. I don't know where that comes from. It is so easy to sharpen this, or it was very easy to sharpen this, and that told me that most likely, and I can't be sure without doing an actual cut test or anything like that, but it felt very good on the stones, and it sharpened up very good. And as I progressed through my stones, I sharpened it on venev diamond stones. I started with about 160/125 micron, and I moved my way through the stones. And as I was progressing through the stones, it was sharpening up so fast. Everything went fast. It felt good. No issues whatsoever. The burr came up really quick. Everything went beautiful. When I got to the stone that was going to say whether or not this was going to take a polish, it went very good, and I was very confident after that point that it was going to take a good mirror polish. Now, after getting to the mirror polish, I felt that it still had a significant amount of bite. It felt really good. It didn't feel, bad. So, I stropped it up, and yeah, it came out very, very well. So even though it did sharpen up extremely well and everything went well, and it is a very sharp edge, it could be a little stickier. So it didn't take the level of sharpness that I would love to see from 20 CV, but also at the price point and everything else, I feel like it's done at least decent. I'm not going to say it's phenomenal. I did notice, through some of my utility cuts, I did notice a little damage up by the tip, but I can kind of expect that. So it's, that's really not saying much. So, after sharpening, it got extremely sharp, and it sharpened up so good. But, it could be just a tiny bit stickier. I would kind of expect that. So what does that mean? It could mean that the HRC isn't really high, or it could possibly mean, it's just mediocre, because like I said, everything else, it went very well. Everything went good. I would just expect it after sharpening as good as it did to get a little bit stickier behind the edge, but it's still extremely sharp. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like it's not. I'm very happy with it. So I wouldn't even call that a negative. I won't even put that or even talk about it anymore after this. Like, it's not going to be in the negative. It's very good. So, I don't think it's going to be something that, to scream from the hills about, but I think it's still decent enough to say it's not bad. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty impressed. We will take a look at how, it'll go right through. I mean, it's very sharp. It'll go right through a paper towel, no problems. It will go, through paper, obviously. If it'll go through paper towels, it'll definitely go through paper. So very, very sharp, and yeah, it sharpened up so good. I was very happy with the way it felt, seeing as the price as it is and that it's 20 CV. Now I'll take a quick look at this edge. Now I have used it since I sharpened it, so just know that. But it's very, very nice. It's still very mirror polished, and the grind seemed relatively even on both sides. Everything was just, it just went great, man. And it felt really good. Now, does that mean it's great quality 20 CV? Does that mean it has an amazing heat treat? Not necessarily. It definitely means that it's not bad. In my opinion, on my knife, I don't think mine does. I think mine was heat treated rather well. And that's mine. So I can't speak for somebody else's that was done 2 weeks later or something like that. But my example seems like it has a decent heat treat. It, you know, everything seems like it went very well. For me to confidently say that I think it's okay. I think it's pretty decent. I don't think it's bad. Now, let's talk about some bad things after all of that. So, some negative things. One negative thing that I have to say is that this clip, it's okay. It's not horrible. I don't even want to say it's that bad, but I do notice my pants do constantly hit the gap between, you know, where my pants have to slip up and over this flat spot. I'm glad they put flat screws, but if they would have inset it, I think it would have helped a lot better than to have this rim right there on the top of the scales that your jeans or your pocket has to get over. And next thing, you know, like I said, you're going to get a little bit of drag through your cuts with the fuller. It's not that big of a deal. I shouldn't even be mentioning that. But all in all, man, this thing is pretty awesome. I mean, I am pretty impressed. It does have internal stop pins. I forgot to say that. So just know, you know, it's got internal stop pins. The lockup is very solid. It's been very solid. I really can't really complain about too much. I mean, it's been a very awesome knife. I've enjoyed it. And my example is done very well. And I paid for this. This wasn't sent or anything like that. So, you know, I got basically any example anybody would get. All the finishing is done very well. And for this price point, yeah, I'm pretty impressed. So there you guys go. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.